Oh.
Shush kababe. Shush. Shh. Just shut your mouth. All right. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Sports for Dummies, the number one sports podcast on the planet. My name is Josh, your host and guide through all things sports, especially the AFL. I'm joined with the man, the myth, the absolute dummy, John. In today's episode, as you can see right down below John, actually, we are reviewing the Brisbane Lions and our prediction for the 2024 season. It's going to be an exciting one. These guys just came off a defeat in the AFL Grand Final by 4 points against the Magpies. So, Johnny, what are your thoughts? How are you doing? First and foremost, because I know you love that question.
So on to the Brisbane Lions. So as you just said, they just lost a granny. They lost no fans during that game.
No.
Brisbane, for a few years, they had a couple of monkeys to get off their back. They had poor finals performances, and like all interstate clubs, they had a really poor record at the MCG. I think they lost to Hawthorn during the year. They took the Pies, who were the best team all year, and just lost by a kick. And they had chances that they could have won that game. So is it premiership or bust for them this year? I think it is. They didn't lose a game at home, so just mark that down for 12 wins. And I think they're going to get better and better. Just looking at their list, they are super strong. They finished second for points for, behind the Adelaide Crows, and they're in the bottom 8 for points against. So they've got the forward line, back line. Harris Andrews won their best and fairest, averaging 9.5 spoils a game. We thought Nick Murray was doing well with 7.3. Harris Andrews had a league high of 9.5. They're a scary team, Brisbane. I think they're only going to get better.
I completely agree. You look at just their forward line alone. You've got 2 stars, Hipwood, Danaher. However, Hipwood, I felt like last year wasn't as good as previous years. I think he got his long-term contract and probably took a bit of a step back. I'm not so naive.
Still kicked 39 goals, and you missed one person off that forward line is Charlie Cameron.
Oh yes,
who's
electrifying.
Who's arguably, he is the best small forward in the comp, and arguably the most exciting player in the league. That forward line is special, and they have 3 players inside the top 15 for goals. Their back line was really solid with Andrews. Corey McKenna coming back from Ireland. He's beefed up. He was super strong. But Coleman, for me, I was unfortunately at the Brisbane Carlton game. Coleman's that half back who just sets it up, and he absolutely destroyed us after quarter time. He gets the ball in his hands. He can break the lines with his pace, but he can also, by foot, he can just pierce through defences and just break down a team structure. So I think Brisbane, for
so
me,
it's a premiership or a bust.
It has to be a premiership or bust. They lost by a kick, could have won that game, and they did everything right. Collingwood were just the better side on the day.
They have such an exceptional team. Like, you just go through their granny squad. I mean, you've got, how do you pronounce the first guy? Starcevic,
that was good.
Andrews, Gardner's
McKenna, a good honest player.
Coleman. This is McCluggage, Dunkley, Zorko through the centre.
So Dunkley was huge coming from the Bulldogs, and
big pickup, great pickup too.
So this was a thing about Brisbane. So I always had, they obviously have great talent. That's never been an issue. I had a problem with them going back with the footy, like running 2 ways.
Yeah. Well,
they answered that last year by, as I said, they were bottom 8 for points against. While being the second best scoring side in the league. That comes through conditioning. Dunkley coming in was another big body, and that's just work rate. So that's really added to them, and they're just going to keep getting better. As I said, they don't lose it. They don't lose at home, and now they can win. Now, and that forward line, three players in the top 15
But not
goals.
even that. You look at the other three forwards. So you've got obviously got Cameron, Hipwood, Danaher. Then you've got Rayner, Bailey, and Archie.
All can hit the scoreboard on their day. And then their midfield is just...
You've got the Brownlow medal.
You got Neil,
Brownlow medalist.
Berry, Hipwood. They're just fantastic to watch, the Lions. And it's amazing that they only had one All-Australian last year, and that was Charlie Cameron, because I really thought, Harris Andrews was definitely a shot with 9.5 spoils per game. Neil didn't even get a crack in. I know people question his Brownlow year, but he's a sensational player. I think with Brisbane, with the forward line and the back line, the only thing I think with the Lions that for them to go to that next step is none of their midfielders averaged a goal a game during the year, which was really, I guess, a concern, as that forward line is sensational, but midfielders need to kick goals.
Well, didn't you say that Lachie Neal only had 3 for the year?
He only kicked 3 goals for the year.
So the Brownlow medalist only had 3 goals for the year.
He kicked 3 goals, 11.
Wow.
3 goals, 11.
But I mean, look at you. Like we said, look at their forward line. You've got 3 players. Didn't you say that you had Hipwood with 39? How many goals did Cameron kick?
So this is during the home and away. Yep. Cameron kicked, I think he kicked 53 and Danaher kicked 51.
That's exceptional.
So you've got 3 players in the top 15. They obviously kicked more in the finals. But watching, on grand final day, that went head to head. Their accuracy was elite. They can now play in Melbourne, because that's a big mental, I guess, thing for interstate clubs. Is how many times have we seen it where, especially in that Hawthorn decade, that Hawthorn three-peat, you'd have these really good interstate clubs. While at home they're unbeatable, they come to the MCG and Hawthorn just ran through everyone. Brisbane didn't do that against Collingwood. They're strong contested. They're running 2 ways now. They got a solid defense. Just like to see their midfield hit the scoreboard a little bit better.
Yep. No, I completely agree. I think they've got a very tough run to begin with.
Jeez, I think they've got the top 4 right
Like
off the
very
bat.
tough.
I think they start with us Blue Boys. That was insane, that prelim, because I was there. I'm a Carlton supporter, and there was more Carlton supporters than Brisbane supporters. And the atmosphere when Carlton kicked the first 5 goals was absolutely electric. And unfortunately, I never get carried away with Carlton. I got carried away. I started crying. I'm like, we've got this. We did not have this. Coleman absolutely ripped us apart. Cameron was just dangerous. They just look super good. Like when they're generally always on, but they were just, in terms of transition play, that's where Coleman, I think, is their most important player. Another important thing, though, is, and this is where it gives me hope for Mackay, is Danaher's had a few years sort of in the wilderness, down on his goal kicking.
Well, yeah.
He improved on that this year and pinch hitting in the ruck. And he was absolutely phenomenal. And he kicked 3 goals on the biggest stage. Like, he was huge.
He's a good player. He left Essendon, and ever since then, I think he turned it up.
Well, he was...
I know he went missing.
He was very highly touted when he was recruited. With the Danaher name, obviously. He's always had huge, amounts of talent. He can kick the ball a mile. It's always been, I guess what's been a question on him is his attitude and his goal kicking.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't fault him last year, and kicking 3 goals on grand final day was huge.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. They've got, straight off the cuff, they've got your boys.
Yep.
Then they have the Dockers. Then they have a bye for round 2. They have Collingwood round 3, North round 4, Melbourne round 5, Cats round 6, Giants round 7.
So yeah, you've got the prelim. You got everyone who made the prelim straight off the bat. So that's hard. That's hard work. But then they got a couple of easy ones in Fremantle and North. But if they can survive that, they'll be fine. They're a good enough team that they can beat all those teams on the day.
You said that they went 12 from 12 from home last year.
Yes.
And then how many did they play at home through the finals? They would have played every game.
So they played... So their
2.
finals run, so they played Port Adelaide, which they absolutely destroyed.
At Brisbane?
In Brisbane, yeah.
And then they played...
and then they played Carlton. We were up
by... 14 from 14 at home.
That's it.
That's astounding.
But how is that? And this is, I think,
ridiculous. Could you imagine if you had to pay them up in the granny at Brisbane?
well, Brisbane played Collingwood in the in the granny. Well, they did play him in the granny. They played him at the Gabba early in the year,
that's what
in round 4, and they pantsed them.
Yeah,
they couldn't handle. Pies couldn't handle the heat. That's a different argument altogether.
Should that be a thing? If you finish on top, should you get the right to have the grand final at your home ground? That would be that should be an argument. There's something there because I didn't know. 14 from 14, that's exceptional.
Collingwood still would have got the grand final because they finished first.
Yes, 100%.
But that is a legitimate question to make because it is a bit unfair that you have to go to the MCG. I know 100%. That's tradition. It's beautiful to watch, but there's ways you can do it. You can do it like the Super Bowl, where it rotates every year.
Yeah.
So you could have Carlton and Brisbane playing in the grand final and grand final days at Adelaide, or do you give it to the best side? There's an argument that makes it as fair as possible.
That's what I think. If you're the best side, I think if you finish first and you get it to the granny, I think you should be able to take the rights to the home ground.
Geez, there'd be a lot.
But it makes so much sense because then you're playing for the first spot. You're not playing just to position yourself for the finals.
Of course.
Like I genuinely think that...
Do you want to hear something very unfair? This is a history. This is a bit of history. So in 2004, Brisbane aging list had won 3 in a row and were going for their 4th in a row.
Yeah. They
made the prelim final, obviously because they made the granny and it was their home final and they played Geelong who finished 4th. Because there had to be a minimum number of games at the MCG on final for the prelim final, Brisbane had to play their home game at the MCG.
So that's ridiculous.
So imagine that you're an old side, you don't get to play your home game at home, and then you've got to travel back and forth.
That's what I mean. It's just unfair. That's an unfair advantage. Any squad that's playing as a Melbourne team has an advantage of the G, especially a team like Richmond. You look at that, Richmond, Collingwood.
Richmond, and Collingwood get it because they play a lot. They still train sort of away. Richmond's right there. The whole, I guess, home ground thing really annoys me. It's why I get annoyed with Geelong's fans when they're like, we don't get to play our home ground at the finals. Well, neither do the other Melbourne clubs. Are like, oh, well, Eddie had your home ground. No, it's not. We play there 4 times. You train on Geelong. You play at Geelong. Yep. But that is a completely separate issue that we can do in another video. So Brisbane come in with a hard run. They're pretty unscathed. The only thing that is in terms of an injury list is Will Ashcroft.
That's a big out.
He's done. I mean, he was super. He played 18 games last year. He made the best under 22. Sorry, 23 under 23. And he's out for half the year.
Yeah. I think we're about to come up to that very, very murky part in the AFL Grand Final where they had that situation where they had the advantage called and he was kicking it over the back of his head.
Yeah,
which is just ridiculous.
And we touched on this. Like, the goals in this game are absolutely stunning. Like, Danaher's last quarter
outstanding.
Was fantastic. But that...
Oh, they're not going to play it. What a bummer.
Oh, it's probably Collingwood propaganda. That advantage rule, and I said it when we were doing our predictions, is an absolute joke. Because, and it's happened to all the big clubs when they were winning. Hawthorn got it, Geelong got it, Richmond got it. When you've got a big crowd, it sort of influences, and they just get these dicey free kicks all the time, and Brisbane were robbed.
No, I agree. They should have had a chance to at least, I know.
That doesn't mean they would have won.
No, not at all. But I think they would have had a chance to have had a shot. Like they could have set up quickly, passed it in. Danaher could have been on the lead, kicks his fourth.
They could have had a set play.
That's what I'm saying. And who was it in the end who had it? I think it was Bailey kicked it over his head or something. Yeah. And you're just like, how's that an advantage? Every Collingwood supporter would have been pretty happy, but Collingwood seemed to have done that the whole year.
Yeah.
You know, just come back and win. Very close.
Side bottoms 50-meter penalty.
Yep.
Like, I mean, they hadn't been paying that all day.
But then he kicked an absolute bomb, which is rare. You know, you look at that.
55 metres, old legs. I mean, that grand final from an aesthetic...
It was one of the best to watch.
It was one of the best.
We hadn't seen anything like it in a while.
Well, most of the finals... Okay, you go look at the prelim final with GWS and Collingwood. That was a tough, spiteful...
Yep.
Like, mistakes were all over the place. Brisbane versus Collingwood was just free-flowing football. I think Brisbane kicked 5 goals before they missed.
But it was still a pretty low-scoring game, like 90 to 86. But GWS and Collingwood was like 70s.
It was like your 50s.
Yeah,
and 60s.
early 70s, yeah. Which is, I mean, no surprise, and it was a point difference in the end, which is just crazy.
But it was tight. It was gritty. A lot of mistakes. While
I don't envy being a Collingwood supporter. I know we're on Brisbane right now, but if you were a Collingwood, and we're going to be, I'm pretty certain they come up next, but being a Collingwood supporter, you'd be on the edge of your seat at every game.
Well, there are two things. One, well, there's a few things there on the
Collingwood.
Collingwood.
Great advertising,
The
like
one
great marketing.
on the Collingwood thing. One, obviously, everyone gets up for Collingwood. They're premiers this year. Everyone's going to want to beat them.
100%.
Collingwood, the way that they play, let you in the game too. They very rarely smash sides.
Yeah.
So it is the amount of times Collingwood have won close games or had to come from behind. But this is a Brisbane video. I've found we are pitching the Collingwood, which we will review soon.
No, I'm just saying. So Brisbane for you, purely premiership or... So what's their pass mark? So they have to win.
They have to win a grand final. They lost by a kick. They've been finishing top 4 for 4 or 5 years now.
Yep.
They were beaten in straight sets a couple of times. They got slaughtered in a prelim by Geelong.
Yep.
They lost no friends against Collingwood, but it's premiership or bust for Brisbane. They've got the list. Their forward line's sensational. Their back line is sensational. Their midfield. So this is the thing. Their midfield's good. One thing for them, because you got to improve, yeah? You have to improve. They didn't win. If they can just get one of their midfielders just to average a goal a game, that's the only flaw that they had. And those, by the way, those players contested wise at the contest, set up players, you know, I'm not taking that into account, but if they can start to kick a little bit more goals as a midfield unit, who's going to stop them? Who's going to stop them?
I'm going to bring in the inclusions and incoming players that went into the squad for Brisbane, who they picked up over the trade period. Tom Doty.
He's injured.
He's injured until the mid-year.
Yep.
He's got a knee injury, but he's from Adelaide. And Brandon Ryan, obviously they picked up a few others. Brandon Ryan was traded from Hawthorn, 200 centimetre forward, who's going to add another layer to their already amazing forward line. Outgoing players was Marcus Adams.
They actually lost.
Yeah, Mackay Cockatoo and Daniel Rich retired.
So they actually lost a fair bit of like known names. Like Marcus Adams was a key defender at the Dogs, constantly getting hurt, missed out on their premiership year. Mackay Cockatoo is an interesting one because he was a Geelong boy who had all the talent in the world and just never got there. Daniel Rich, I mean, he's one of the best. He's one of the best kicks you've ever seen. Yeah.
No, he was elite for his time and how good he could have 60-metre bombs. He just hit a target from a mile away. You also had Blake Coleman, how do you pronounce that? Fullerton. Anyway, Jack Gunston. But he's a great footballer at any squad.
Well,
Reece Matheson is a big one.
The Gunston thing, he was a premiership player at Hawthorn. He's part of that. There's a lot of people from Hawthorn who went to Brisbane. So you had Hodge, Grant Purchell, Gunston, but I think Gunston's gone back to Hawthorn.
And then that was for the reason they got Brandon Ryan was because of that trade. So
correct.
I think it was a smart one. He's a lot older.
He's older now.
He's retiring, no doubt.
Those Brisbane players, Hodge, Burchell, always go when they've only got a couple of years left anyway.
Yep.
Get some sunshine, eke the last bit of that leadership role.
Yep.
Gunston's had a fantastic career.
Oh, he's an absolute cracking player.
Yeah.
Just dead-eye dick. In my opinion, in terms of a pass mark, I'm thinking. Look, I think you're right. I mean, to lose by 4 points, arguably I thought they should have won it. I really think they got screwed on that advantage call. I think they can win it. I don't think it's coming from a place that they have to. I think they genuinely can win it. And I think if the AFL ever changed that rule to make the grand final outside of the MCG, which they did during COVID, they made exemptions and they made rules where they could change it. I reckon if they genuinely make that rule...
On that could have been Brisbane's best chance to win a granny. They had the whole year at the Gabba plus the finals and they still got spanked.
Yeah, so I do think that'll be... I think that's going to be their undoing, is still the fact that they still can't seem to come down to the G and just pull it off. Obviously had a very good error down this way, but...
they got close to the Pies. I think that's where they've improved.
Yep.
Because like I said, I think a few weeks later they lost to the Hawks. So that was my big question mark on Brisbane, was their ability to run two ways and their ability at the MCG and what they could do in finals. They have ticked those boxes. So let's say they make a granny and lose again. That's not a win. You almost beat a really good Collingwood side. You don't make the granny. That's not a win.
Well, you almost may. If you're making a granny again for the second time, you'd hope you're winning. If you're not winning, then,
and look at that list.
You're done.
Look at the demographic of that list.
Yeah,
like it's not an old list.
No, they've got a lot of youth in that team.
It's more that middle age, mature list, but no one's really that old. Like they don't have that old veteran. Like Gunston was that player.
Yeah. Well, it makes I genuinely think that they're it's premiership and it's not all bust.
It's premiership or bust.
I think they can take it out and they can win. Oh, well, look at
okay. So if Brisbane lose another granny by 4 points,
they're finishing top 2.
Yeah, 100%. Top 4. Top 2. They could even finish first in terms of at the end of the home and away season.
Yeah,
with that many games with the Gabba, absolutely they can. But you can't tell me that if they don't win the granny, they're not like that's a pass. They've failed in finals so many times. Then they've made the granny. This is the time, Brisbane. It's
Make
the
or
time.
break.
Make or break.
All right. I think that sums everything up. That's Brisbane recap done.
Preview.
Yeah, preview done. Sorry, I said review at the start of this whole thing.
Thanks everyone for watching. On Monday. On Monday. What?
That was as bad as my best man speech at the wedding on Thursday. It was just
typical,
my name, Jeff.
Typical real estate agent. Tomorrow we're going to be off football. We're going to be interviewing a special guest. So that will be something else. And on Monday we'll be previewing the Carlton Football Club, which I'm very excited for.
Oh yeah, it's Carlton next.
The Blue Baggers.
Oh, I wonder where I'm going to be putting them. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe. Now we're at 69 subscribers, guys. Every one of you
No one else
counts.
subscribe. Just keep it on 69.
Goodbye, John.